Thanksgiving has always been my favorite holiday. Something about the smell of roasting turkey, the warmth of family around the table, the cozy glow of candles against autumn decorations, it's all supposed to be comforting. But this year was different. My family decided to celebrate Thanksgiving at my aunt's old farmhouse, deep in the countryside. The place was charming, sure, but old and isolated. When we arrived, the air was already tense. Aunt Ruth was always odd. She claimed to be in touch with the spirit world, and her house was filled with strange charms and symbols meant to ward off evil. I'd never paid much attention to her gifts, but that night I started to believe. Dinner was delicious, though the quietness of the place made the house feel oddly watchful. As the sky darkened, a deep, bone-chilling cold settled over the farmhouse, and a restless energy seemed to fill the air. Aunt Ruth suddenly stood up, a strange look in her eyes, and said, "There's something I need to share with you." She led us to the living room, where she kept an old cedar chest by the fireplace. She opened it, pulling out a bundle wrapped in faded cloth. Her hands were shaking as she unwrapped it, revealing an ancient, cracked mirror. Its glass was cloudy and speckled with dark stains. She set it on the table and whispered, "This mirror is cursed." We all exchanged skeptical glances, but Aunt Ruth's voice took on an eerie calm as she explained that the mirror was said to be a portal, a bridge between the living and the dead. "This is a family heirloom," she said, her voice barely a whisper. "On Thanksgiving night, spirits can cross through, and once they come, they don't leave easily." Her eyes darted around the room, as if expecting someone or something to appear. She handed me a candle and said, "Light this, and make sure you don't look into the mirror tonight." I laughed it off, but Aunt Ruth's intense stare stopped me. She was serious, deadly serious. I took the candle, promising to follow her instructions, even though I didn't believe a word of it. That night, the house grew unbearably cold. The wind howled outside, rattling the old windows, and the shadows in the room seemed to grow darker, stretching out like claws. Everyone had gone to bed, leaving me alone with my candle in the living room. I couldn't shake Aunt Ruth's warning from my mind. I glanced at the mirror, and an uneasy curiosity took hold. Just one look wouldn't hurt, right? The moment I looked into the mirror, the room around me seemed to vanish. All I could see was my reflection, but it was wrong. My face was pale, eyes hollow, like I hadn't slept in days. The reflection didn't move with me. I raised my hand, but the reflection's hand stayed by its side, its mouth twisting into a grin that I wasn't making. A chill swept through me, and I tried to look away, but I was frozen, transfixed. My reflection tilted its head, eyes narrowing as if examining me. Then it spoke. "Why did you call me here?" Its voice was like my own, but deeper, a dark, mocking echo. My heart raced, and I felt the walls close in. I tried to move, to scream, but I was paralyzed. The figure in the mirror leaned closer, its hand pressing against the glass, and I felt a weight against my chest, as if it was pressing down on me. My vision blurred, and all I could see was its face, twisted with rage, hollow eyes staring into my soul. "You shouldn't have looked," it hissed. I broke free of the trance, stumbling backward, and the mirror fell to the floor, shattering with a piercing crash. As the shards scattered, I caught a glimpse of something in the fragments. Faces. Dozens of them, all twisted and contorted, staring back at me with hollow eyes. The lights flickered, and a cold draft swept through the room. I heard footsteps behind me, soft and deliberate. When I turned, I saw nothing, only shadows dancing against the walls. Then the whispers started. At first they were faint, like leaves rustling, but they grew louder, voices overlapping, angry, accusing. They were coming from the broken mirror, each shard reflecting a different face, each one a spirit trapped inside, and they were all looking at me. I scrambled to my feet, backing away as the voices grew louder, filling the room with a cacophony of rage. One voice rose above the rest, cold and sharp. "You've let us in," it said, a hint of twisted joy in its tone. I grabbed my candle, whispering desperate apologies, and tried to run to the door, but the shadows moved with me, blocking my path. The faces in the mirror shards seemed to be grinning, stretching and twisting like they were enjoying my fear. Then Aunt Ruth appeared in the doorway, holding a bundle of sage. She murmured something under her breath, waving the sage around the room. The voices grew weaker, fading into soft whispers, and finally fell silent. She looked at me with a mix of anger and pity. "I told you not to look," she said, shaking her head. "They'll follow you now." I tried to protest, but she stopped me. "There's no getting rid of them, not once you've called them here." Her voice was resigned, a note of sorrow in her eyes. The rest of the family didn't understand why I left so abruptly the next morning. I couldn't stay, not with the feeling that something was always watching me. As I drove away from the farmhouse, I glanced in the rearview mirror and saw a face in the back seat, a twisted, hollow grin staring back at me. Even now, I feel it, their eyes on me. Every reflection holds something. Just a little too familiar, like they're still watching, waiting for their chance to cross over.